2013, the Werklund School of Education mandated that all Bachelor of Education students would take part in a course on First Nations, Métis, and Inuit history, education, and leadership. The learning represents a wide range of topics. It may be a first encounter with Indigenous perspectives, or may extend from what they already know. Students reflect on their own positioning, which may challenge their understanding of who they are and of the society they live in. They emerge with inspiration and dedication, with a new understanding of their roles and responsibilities as educators, as Canadians, and as human beings.
The notion of transformative learning certainly applies for me for how I have grown in this class. We need to find ways to honor and respect Aboriginal culture. We can learn so much from our differences.
Education can create the ripples that will disrupt power and privilege and force change.
I would describe my shift in understanding as wanting to learn about Indigenous content to wanting to learn through Indigenous knowledge.
And an important experience in my learning journey has been to contemplate my identity as not only a fourth-generation Albertan, but as a descendant of settler colonists. My responsibility in this work is to create an ethical space for reflection, compassion, and change.
It is important to me to learn about the history of the land of Canada, the story of colonialism, and the devastating effects of it on the people being colonized. The hope is that with proper education there can be restoration of all that was lost, including culture, identity, and language.
The land is a way to connect Indigenous ways of knowing into our classrooms.
What resonated with me was First Nations storytelling because that's the way that I learned lessons and morals growing up as a child.
A light in a sea of darkness, meaning hope can be found in a situation that is hard. As a future teacher, I will foster a classroom of where individuals can learn through the experience of one another, build relationships amongst individuals, and allow their stories to be heard.
Through inward reflection, I have found two components that make up who I am: my developing ability to be transparent with myself and my biases.
A metaphor for my learning starts at the root of a tree. I become more aware of my surroundings and I am able to deepen my knowledge base.
I recognize the challenges Aboriginal people faced, their different identities and diversity, and their determination, drive, and pride. As educators, we have the responsibility of integrating Indigenous knowledge systems and oral histories in our classrooms. We owe it to every student to teach them about Canada's full, rich history.
I've grown to appreciate the knowledge that people hold and the stories embedded in the land.
A theme that keeps coming back to me is the barriers that Aboriginal peoples face on a daily basis.
For me, a wider view of the land can lead to a place where all people are equally treasured, understood, and nurtured.
Indigenous perspectives, and as a new teacher, I will continue to break down barriers entrenched within education and society, change the common beliefs and misconceptions, and help bridge the gap between Western and Aboriginal worldviews.
It is about understanding how to heal, how to repaint the broken gate, but not doing it without the help of others.
Connectivity in Indigenous culture is what really spoke to me.
While no one can erase the damage done in the past, I hope that moving towards healing can build a better future for future generations.
To me is the cyclical nature of learning. We are going around the circle as many times as we can to build upon our knowledge.
I want to saturate my classrooms with the truth of Canada's colonial past, the good and the bad, while making sure to provide hope. I never want to leave my students in a desolate place.
I am inspired by the resiliency and strength of survivors. I appreciate the lines of connections in learning.
What is important to me is learning to communicate the facts of our history in ways that can be accepted and understood whenever and wherever these difficult conversations arise.
We need to learn and unlearn about the truth of past Canadian history. With the help and the guidance of the culture expert, I am open to the learning.
We value what we are given by our elders differently, and what our communities value is not always the same. What other people cherish must always be given equal worth.
When you take the time to listen, there is wisdom there. For me, this silent, still, and listening space is where healing and reconciliation begins.
Imagine if someone you loved was missing or murdered and no justice was served. Imagine if no one cared, no one listened, or no one tried to understand. I attended the Sisters in Spirit Vigil, which honors the lives of missing and murdered Indigenous women. At this event, stories were shared through voice and song by family members, friends, and community, remembering their daughters, sisters, mothers, and grandmothers who have been missing or murdered without justice. 1,200 shoes fill the center of the plaza, representing the 1,200 missing girls and women. As Canadians, we need to support movements like this to promote social change.
The history of children's suffering is heartbreaking. With our support, children will be the change.
I feel it is my responsibility to reimagine our past, present, and future through story. By incorporating both uncomfortable and empowering stories of Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians, I hope to continue unpacking the privilege I hold. I will help my students do the same and explore how we can become allies in creating a brighter future.
There's a dark chapter in the history of colonization of Canada, which is residential schools. We try to acknowledge this and show everybody what happened. And then from this point, try to move to reconciliation and find hope for the survivors, which is a big step and it encompasses a lot of hope.
I can no longer stand by and ignore the suffering of children. The birth of my daughter just, it opened my heart. Every time I see a suffering child, I see my daughter's face.
Life is like a tightrope. You walk your own line, balancing between right and wrong, good and bad, your own beliefs and others.
The past of education has done a disservice to all learners in covering up the truth. The light in the picture is kind of a representation of hope for what education can be in repairing the relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous learners.
What meaning will I give to the shadows I hear? I want to be able to respond and go forward in remembrance. I will bring what little knowledge and understanding I have to my students, so that they can never say we were not told.
It represents my prior knowledge and biases, but also the support I have received, which has given me the confidence to incorporate Indigenous perspectives respectfully and authentically in my future class.
As instructors who have engaged in this difficult learning with our students, we also encounter moments of difficult teaching. We would like to thank our students for trusting in us and allowing us to share in their learning journeys with them. We are inspired by the growing community of allies stepping forward to take part in difficult conversations and honest dialogue. This is not easy. Reconciliation takes place in conversations, in relationships, in everyday situations. We can only do this together.